Hello friends, good afternoon. Hi, this is Alok Ojha. Welcome to StudyIQ IAS English. Today we are going to cover one of the topics, that is Simon Commission. And apart from that, we'll cover Nehru Report and Jinnah's 14-point plan. Here we are also going to cover committees like Butler Committee, and apart from that, we are also going to cover Muddiman Committee. Yesterday, we had seen one of the most important aspect, that is non-cooperation movement. One of the most important movements led by Mahatma Gandhi. And we had also seen the formation of Congress Khilafat Swarajya Party or Swarajya Party. For the aspirants who are new to the platform, let me tell you one important thing, guys. The most important aspect, you can download the PDF of the session from my Telegram channel, that is history_Alok Ojha. I repeat, you on the PDF of the session from my Telegram channel, history_Alok Ojha. I have also covered Ancient Indian History series on YouTube, where we have covered diversified and varied topics like prehistoric culture, Indus Valley civilization, Vedic civilization, Mahajanpad, Mauryan Empire, Buddhism, Jainism, Sangam Age, Guptas, and so on. And apart from that, I have also tried to cover important aspects of modern Indian history, ranging from the Portuguese, important governor generals, important Charter Act, peasant movement, education commission, and so on. Correct? Today's session won't be much longer, so please stick till the end in the session. So let's start with the Muddiman Committee. Now, Muddiman Committee is also referred as Reforms Inquiry Committee, and it was set up under the chairmanship of Sir Alexander Muddiman. The committee had 4 Indian members, and these Indian members included Tej Bahadur Sapru, apart from this Muhammad Ali Jinnah, RP Paranjape, and Sivaswamy Iyer. Now, before I tell you the objective of the Muddiman Committee, let me go into a brief background of Government of India Act 1919 or Montego-Chelmsford reforms. Now, there is a concept called as diarchy. Now, let me tell you what is diarchy all about, and let me give you a brief synopsis of Government of India Act 1919 or Montego-Chelmsford reforms. Okay? As per Government of India Act 1919, bicameralism was introduced at the center for the first time. And there were 2 houses. Central Legislative Assembly, synonymous with present-day Lok Sabha, and Council of States, synonymous with present-day Rajya Sabha. Central Legislative Assembly had 145 members, out of which 104 were elected and 41 were nominated. On the other hand, Council of State had 60 members, 33 were elected and 27 were nominated. Correct? Diarchy was introduced in the provinces. Now, what is the meaning of the word diarchy? Diarchy basically means rule of 2. Now, let's understand about this. As per Government of India Act 1919, also referred as Montego-Chelmsford reforms, the subjects were divided into 2 parts. Central subjects, which had approximately around 47 subjects, and the provincial subjects, which approximately had around 50 subjects. The provincial subjects were again further divided into 2 parts, reserved and transferred. Under reserved subject, the law could be made by Governor General and his Executive Council. On the other hand, in transferred subject, the law could be made by Governor General and Indian ministers. So this is diarchy. So what is the meaning of the word diarchy? Rule of 2. Governor General and his Executive Council, and secondly, Governor General and Indian ministers. So what was the basic purpose of Muddiman Committee coming to India? The basic purpose or objective of Muddiman Committee was to review the working of diarchy. Okay? And it had English members who were also referred as officials, and Indian members who were also referred as non-officials. Finally, at that time, the Secretary of State for India was Lord Birkenhead. And Lord Birkenhead said the decision would be taken on majority basis. Okay? Officials or the Englishmen, they believe that diarchy in India is working in a smooth manner. But still, and it has certain discrepancies, but still, diarchy is working properly. And certain minute changes are required. On the other hand, the Indians believed, or the non-officials believed, that we want a constitution on permanent basis that would be framed by the Indians itself. And diarchy is not working up to the mark at the provincial level. And this was the belief of the Indians or the non-official members of the Muddiman committee. But as I've told you, the decision here would be based on what? The decision would be completely based on the majority. So finally, it was believed that diarchy is working properly and certain minute changes are being required. Okay? So this is nothing but Muddiman committee. Hope so the points are clear, guys. Now let's move ahead with the further part and the most important aspect. And that aspect is Simon Commission. Okay. Now, particularly speaking, what was the major objective of Simon Commission coming to India? Guys, as I have told you n number of times right from the start itself, Britishers have been quite diplomatic in India. Correct? I'll give you a small example. In 1905, it is believed that Lord Curzon announced a partition of Bengal. And when he announced a partition of Bengal, there began a Swadeshi movement throughout the country. Although the Swadeshi movement began from the region of Bengal, but with the passage of time, due to the efforts of extremist leaders, it engulfed the pan-India character. Correct? Now what happened? Now Britishers wanted to suppress the extremist, and now they wanted to pacify the moderate nationalist. So what did Britishers do? They came up with Indian Council Act 1909, also referred as Morley-Minto reforms. Because Morley was Secretary of State for India and Minto was Viceroy of India. True? Correct, guys? Coming ahead. After that, from 1908 to 1914, there was a political vacuum in the country. Why? Because moderate had become loyalist. Majority of the extremist leaders, they were not an active participant in the coming movements. Why? Because Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji, who was sent to Mandalay jail for the next 6 years. Aurobindo Ghosh retired from active politics. Bipin Chandrapal, he retired from the active politics. Correct? So from the period from 1908 to 1914 was a period of political vacuum in the country. People had accepted the British rule as a part of their life. Finally, with the efforts of Annie Besant and in the coming years, Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji, there began a movement in the country in the form of Home Rule League movement. This movement, again, it created a new fervor, a new enthusiasm among the nationalists of India. It started or created a feeling of nationalism among the people of India. And what is nationalism? Nationalism is basically feeling of belongingness. Correct? After this, Britishers had come up with another act which is referred as Revolutionary or Anarchical Crime Act, also referred as Rowlatt Act. They came up with particularly, there was an incident that is called as Jallianwala Bagh massacre, after which Gandhi gave up his Kesare-Hind gold medal and said it's a mistake of Himalayan magnitude, and also said Britishers have lost the moral authority to govern this nation. Rabindranath Tagore ji renounced his knighthood. Apart from this, the Muslim section particularly now decided to work with Indian National Congress. Why? Because a very different attitude have been adopted by the Britishers against Turkey in World War I. So there began a Khilafat movement in the country. And finally, Khilafat movement was merged with the non-cooperation movement. So when all these events, or when the country was going through these events, what did Britishers do? They played another card. What card was that? Now they wanted to pacify Indians. And now they played the card of Government of India Act 1919, also referred as Montego Chelmsford reforms. It is referred as Montego-Chelmsford reforms because Montego, he was Secretary of State for India at that time, and Chelmsford, he was Viceroy of India. Okay. Now, after this, there was non-cooperation movement on a massive scale throughout the country, which was being followed by formation of Swarajya Party or Congress Khilafat Swarajya Party. Government of India Act 1919 or Montego-Chelmsford reforms had a clause, and the clause says that after 10 years, we'll bring up a commission in India which will review the working of the entire setup of Montego-Chelmsford reforms. Correct? Now, Simon Commission was being appointed. Simon Commission was a heavily criticized commission. Why it was a heavily criticized commission? Because all the 7 members of the commission were Englishmen. There was no single Indian member in the commission. What was the major objective of the commission? The major objective of the commission was particularly what changes needs to be brought in India. If what changes needs to be brought in India, at least there should be few Indian members in the commission. But Lord Irwin and Lord Birkenhead, and at that point of time, there was a conservative government in England. They suggested that Indians should be kept aloof from the commission. Correct? So, it was a heavily criticized commission because all the 7 members of the commission were Englishmen. They were completely, it was an all-white commission. And particularly speaking, there were 7 members in the commission, which included Sir John Simon, Clement Attlee, Harry Lawson, Edward Cadogan, Vernon, George Land Fox, and finally Donald Howard. All of them Englishmen. Now, what was the hidden? It simply means implicit. And what was the objective that Britishers wanted to show the people of India? So let's understand about the explicit and the implicit objectives of the Simon Commission. Okay. Now let's understand about the explicit and the implicit objectives of the Simon Commission. Correct? Pay attention properly. We'll go in a clause by clause manner. Actually, as per Montego-Chelmsford reforms as discussed, okay, just a second. As per Montego-Chelmsford reform, it was decided that a commission would be brought in the country after 10 years. So actually, Britishers wanted to show that they're actually sincere in transferring more powers to Indian. But these are the Indians who are not ready on consensus making. Correct? So they wanted to show that they are actually sincere in transferring the power to the people of India. This was their what? Explicit agenda. But what was their implicit agenda? They wanted to widen the communal feelings by creating the policy of regionalism. Now, how these people are promoting regionalism, let's understand. They created an impression of federal constitution. Guys, you might have studied about one thing, that our country, it's a quasi-federal country. Our constitution is a quasi-federal constitution. Now, what is quasi-federal? We have states. States have the authority to make the law. But these states are not above the center. The central law will prevail. Simple words, the center is more powerful than the states. How do we understand this? Like, I'll give you a very small example. Try to correlate this example. Like, the states have the authority to make law. Like, I'll give you a small example. Suppose if a new state needs to be created, correct? We think that if a new state needs to be created, it's a very big decision. So such a big decision could be implemented by a special majority in the parliament. But no, my friends, there would be a simple majority of the parliament to create a new state. Correct? Although the consensus of the state would be taken, but it is not binding on the center. It is just created by a simple majority. So here, the center is more powerful than the state. So when the center is more powerful than the state, there is a feeling of nationalism among the people of the country. But what did Britishers do? Initially, during the Swadeshi movement, they divided Bengal on communal lines. How? West Bengal was a Hindu majority province. East Bengal was a Muslim majority province. And why? They divided Bengal on the pretext of what? It is too big to be administered by a single viceroy. But what was their hidden agenda? To hurt the communal fabric of the country. Same card they have played here. Initially, they played the game of Hindus and Muslims. Now, they are playing another game in form of what? By creating or by giving the provinces the autonomy to make the law. And when the provinces will become more stronger than the center, this will promote the feeling of regionalism, which is an antidote to nationalism. That is feeling of belongingness. So by making such laws, particularly, what Britishers are trying to do? They are trying to create regional influences, which will weaken the center, which will weaken the nationalist movement going on in the country. So, what were the major recommendations? Let's understand. There should be constitutional reconstruction, federal constitution, provinces should be given the full autonomy including law. As discussed earlier, federal constitution basically means we need to have a strong center and weak state or provinces. But what was here? Weak center and strong provinces, which will promote regionalism. Then, apart from this, the number of the members of the Provincial Legislative Council would be increased. Apart from this, Governor General should have the power to appoint the members of the cabinet, and Government of India should have a complete control over the High Court. Let's understand about this point, guys. Presently, in our country, we have three major agencies in the form of legislature, executive, and judiciary. The major objective of legislature is to make the laws. The major purpose of executive is to implement the law or execute the law. And the major purpose of judiciary, which is also referred as temple of justice, is to interpret the law. And judiciary, it is given the complete freedom. And there is no interference in the working pattern of judiciary. True? What happened here? Now, judiciary will work under the Government of India. So, judiciary was not free. Correct? Now, there was a lot of interference by the Governor General and his Executive Council in the working pattern of judiciary. These are the major recommendations. So, what are the important flaws of the Simon Commission? Thinking logically about this. First major flaw. As discussed earlier, you have come in India to make constitutional reconstruction in India. And there's no single Indian member in the commission. All the members of the commission are Englishmen. So at least there could have been 2 to 3 members who could be Indians. So there's no single Indian member in the commission. Apart from this, no universal adult franchisee have been discussed here. One of the major things, correct? Like we have discussed previously, as per Indian Council Act 1892, correct? The minimum number of members in the Imperial Legislative Council was 10 and the maximum was 16. And these 16 were not directly elected. These 16 were indirectly elected. They were indirectly elected by whom? By the big landlords, moneylenders, capitalists, the members of the Chamber of Commerce, university boards, municipalities, and so on. And who are these people? These are the people who are loyal towards Britishers. Then coming in 1909. In 1909, what happened particularly? Again, there was no major voting rights for the people of the country. Correct. Then comes 1919. Now, what law did they make in 1919? There was right to vote. But the right to vote was only given to the people who had a taxable income of minimum 3,000 rupees. As per many historians, at that time, approximately around 18 to 20,000 people, correct, had a taxable income of 3,000 rupees. This belonged to the capitalist, zamindar, moneylenders, and all these people are loyal towards Britishers. Correct? So, the voting rights was only confined to the elite section of the society. No universal adult franchisee have been proposed here. Governor General's powers have remained unaffected. It has not been changed. A small example again. As per Indian Council Act 1892, budget could be discussed but not voted upon. In fact, the discussion on the budget could be annulled by the Governor General. Same in 1909, budget could be discussed. Supplementary questions could be asked, but there couldn't be voting on the budget. And in fact, the discussion on the budget could also be annulled by the Governor General and his council. So the powers of Governor General are actually unaffected. There's hardly any dilution in the powers of Governor General. True? There is no provision to abolish separate electorate. Guys, what is separate electorate? I have explained this time and again when I have told you about the Morley Minto reforms. But I'll repeat this for the aspirants who are new to the platform for easier understanding. Okay? Like for example, there's a particular constituency which is declared as a separate electorate. Now, in that constituency, there are 100 members. And out of 100, 70 are Muslims and 30, they belong to the other communities. Now, this constituency has been declared as a separate electorate for the Muslim section. So, what will happen here? The candidate who is standing for election would compulsorily be a Muslim candidate. And apart from this, the voter also needs to be a Muslim. In simple words, under separate electorate, what will happen? Under separate electorate, particularly speaking, the candidate and the voter, both of them belong to the same community. Correct? So in 1909, a separate electorate was being introduced as per Morley Minto reform for the Muslims. And this was extended to the Sikh, Europeans and Anglo-Indians as per Government of India Act 1919 or Morley Minto reforms. So separate electorate is again a medium through which the Indian society was being divided by the Britishers. True? So now what happened? There wasn't any demand to abolish the separate electorate, and there was no discussion on financial devolution to the powers to the Indian ministers. So these are the major flaws of the Simon Commission. Now what happened? When there was a decision that Simon Commission will come to India, now majority of the nationalists of India decided to boycott the Simon Commission. And in 1927, the session of Indian National Congress was held at Madras and it was being presided by M.A. Ansari. And Indian National Congress decided that it is going to boycott Simon Commission. Okay, it is going to boycott the Simon Commission. This viewpoint was also supported by the liberals of Hindu Mahasabha. But in Muslim League, there was dissenting opinion. Now let's understand what was a dissenting opinion in Muslim League. Now, in 1927, there were two sessions of the Muslim League that were held. One session was held at Calcutta and the second session was held at Lahore. And by now, Muslim League had two important leaders, Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Muhammad Shafi. So, in the Calcutta session of the Muslim League, correct, it was being presided by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah urged the nationalists of the Muslim League to give up separate electorate and go for a joint electorate. This will portray Hindu-Muslim unity. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah's section of Muslim League decided to boycott the Simon Commission. On the other hand, the second session of the All India Muslim League was held at Lahore. And this session was being presided by Muhammad Shafi. And here Muhammad Shafi said that we want separate electorate. And they welcomed Simon Commission. Correct? So there were many sections who welcomed the Simon Commission. Like, particularly speaking, Unionist of Punjab, Justice Party of Madras, correct? Then depressed classes headed by B.R. Ambedkar welcomed the Simon Commission. And there were many who opposed the Simon Commission, such as Indian National Congress. Apart from this, Hindu Mahasabha, the liberals of Hindu Mahasabha. Again, Muslim League section under Muhammad Ali Jinnah. they decided to boycott the Simon Commission. Finally, Simon Commission, it landed in Bombay. And when it landed in Bombay, it was greeted with black flags in Bombay. Forget about Bombay. Simon Commission went to Lucknow, Vijayawada, Pune, Calcutta. So it was greeted, Lahore. It was greeted with black flags throughout in India. And the slogans were being raised, Simon, go back. Correct? Simon, go back. And new radical groups emerged at this time. Punjab Naujawan Bharat Sabha, Hindustan Seva Dal in the region of Karnataka. Punjab Naujawan Bharat Sabha was a radical group created by Bhagat Singh Ji. So, when the Simon Commission went to the region of Lahore, here the protest was being led by one of the most revered extremist leaders, whose name was Lala Lajpat Rai Ji, oftenly referred as Sher-e Punjab. And there was a violent clash at that time. Lathi blows, like Lala Lajpat Rai Ji had severe lathi blows on his chest. And by now, he was quite aged personality. And due to like injury on the chest, he succumbed to death. And finally, in the coming years, the death of Lala Lajpat Rai Ji was avenged by Bhagat Singh Ji. And Bhagat Singh Ji, he got involved in the assassination of Saunders. That is Saunders murder case. He was a DSP at that time. So during the Simon Commission, there emerged new leaders. The youth were being provided by the icons like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose Ji. And what happened finally? Britishers came up heavily, correct, on the nationalist of all the rank. Jawaharlal Nehru and GB Pant were beaten up in the lockup. People were lathi charged. And police came down heavily on the demonstrators, correct? So this is majorly the government reaction on the Simon Commission. Now, let me give you one more information. Now, Simon Commission had appointed different commissions at that time, correct? Like one of the committee was a Butler committee that was being appointed by the Simon Commission. Hartog committee, we'll say that in further sessions. Hope you understood the Simon Commission, guys. Any question, any query, any sort of doubt, please feel free to ask. Yes, guys? Any question? Like, I'll ask you a few questions, guys. Okay. And please answer these questions in the comment section. Okay. Many a times during my sessions, I usually tell a story which is connected to history. Isn't that so? So, I'll ask you 3 to 4 questions. And please answer these questions in the form of a quiz in the comment section. Correct? My first question is, which event in the history of modern India is also referred as Jallianwala Bagh of Rajasthan? I repeat, which event in the history of modern India is also referred as Jallianwala Bagh of Rajasthan? My second question to you guys. Second major question. Okay. Which among the following Governor General had created Thuggi and Dakaiti Department to control the thugs under the leadership of William Henry Sleeman? I repeat, which among the following Governor Generals had created Thuggi and Dakaiti Department under the leadership of William Henry Sleeman? Okay. Third question. This statement is correlated to what? Okay. Our system acts very much like a sponge, drawing up all the good waters from the bank of river Ganges and squeezing them down on the bank of river Thames. I repeat the statement. Our system acts very much like a sponge, drawing up all the good waters from the bank of river Ganges and squeezing them down on the bank of river Thames. This statement is related to what? And my final question to you guys is, okay, Arya Mahila Samaj was being created by whom? We know, everyone knows about the Arya Samaj. It was being created by Mool Shankar Ji, also referred as Swami Dayanand Saraswati Ji. But Arya Mahila Samaj, it was being created by whom? Answer these 4 questions in the comment section, guys. Okay. Now let's move on with the Butler Committee. Now, Along with Simon Commission, Britishers had set up a 3-member committee which is referred as Butler Committee. Now, basically speaking, why it is called as a Butler Committee? Because the chairman of the committee was Sir Harcourt Butler. And apart from Sir Harcourt Butler, there were other members like W.S. Holdsworth and S.C. Peel. These are the, what we say, specifically the members of the Butler Committee. It is also referred as Indian States Committee. So, Simon Commission, it had appointed Butler Committee. Simon Commission had also appointed specifically Hartog Committee. Guys, if you remember about the Hartog Committee, we have studied about Hartog Committee in quite depth and detail as a part of education commissions. Correct? So what was the basic purpose of Hartog Committee? The basic purpose of Hartog Committee was to review the educational setup in India at that time. And Hartog Committee, which was under Philip Hartog, it was being appointed by the Simon Commission. And Hartog Committee suggested what? Rather than going for multiplication of schools, we need to go for consolidation of schools and focus on quality education. So Hartog Committee was related to education system, and Butler Committee, it was particularly related to what? It is an Indian States Committee. What was the major objective of the Butler Committee? The major objective of the Butler Committee was to analyze and understand the relationship between the British paramount power and the princely states. And the committee, it toured approximately 16 princely states. It visited 16 princely states. And what did the committee said? The paramountcy must remain supreme. The Britishers must remain the paramount power. And the relationship between the princely states and the British government is not a contractual relationship. It's a growing and living relationship which depends upon certain policies. Okay? So this was a statement that it's not a contractual relationship like the relationship between the princely states. Like I'll give you a small example. After Government of India Act 1858, subsidiary land system was being abolished. Doctrine of lapse system was being abolished. So what happened? Princely states, if they accepted the suzerainty of the British Crown, they were given the authority to carry on their own administrative practices. And in that case, the princely states were being supported by the British Crown or the British Parliament. So here, what did the Butler Committee suggested? The relationship is not a contractual relationship. It's actually a growing and living relationship which depends upon the consequences of the policies. Correct? So in very simple words, guys, if somebody asks you, or if the question crops up in the examination, that particularly, if the question crops up in the examination, what was the major objective of what we say a Butler Committee? So the major objective of the Butler Committee was, yes, to understand the relationship between the princely states and the British government. Points are clear, guys? Yes. Hardly the session would be of more 15 to 20 minutes. It is not much longer session. Hope you understood the Butler Committee. Hope you understood the Muddiman Committee, and hope you understood the Simon Commission, which we have seen in quite depth and detail. Now let's understand about the Nehru report. Okay. As we have discussed, the Simon Commission, when it came in India, it was greeted with black flags throughout India. And the slogans were being raised, Simon, go back. So, there was increasing demand in the country for what we say, there was an increasing demand in the country that we want to write our own constitution. We want to create our own constitution, and that too on a permanent basis. There was an increasing demand for this. Now, at that time, the Secretary of State for India was Lord Birkenhead. And Lord Birkenhead challenged the nationalists of India by saying that I want the constitution on my table before 31st of December 1929. Now, the British parliamentarians, they were quite, they felt quite astonished about this. Why did they felt astonished about this? that although you are being a Secretary of State for India, you have the authority to take decisions, but you have given the authority to Indians to make their own constitution. And you have also provided them a deadline of 31st December 1929. What in that case if the Indians come up with the constitution on 31st December? Lord Birkenhead said that I am pretty sure about this, that Indians won't be able to make their constitution, and even if they are able to make their own constitution, what will happen? There would be dissenting opinion between different communities in India. And finally, the constitutional deadline will get over. Let's see what happened further. Finally, Birkenhead gave the open challenge to the Indians to create their own constitution. And finally, what happened? Specifically, the Constitutional Committee was being created for drafting the constitution. The chairman of the committee particularly was Motilal Nehru, and the secretary was particularly whom? Jawaharlal Nehru. And there came up the Nehru report. Other members which included Tej Bahadur Sapru, Ali Imam, Mangal Singh, Subhash Chandra Bose ji, Shoaib Qureshi, G.R. Pradhan and M.S. Anne. Okay. Now what happened? Majority of them favored dominion status. But Subhash Chandra Bose ji and Jawaharlal Nehru wanted Swarajya. And Swarajya here basically means complete independence, not self-government. And what is dominion status? It is like the self-government. Particularly that we will be choosing our own dignitaries, but we would be working under the British Crown or the British Parliament. So majority of the members of the Nehru Committee, okay, who drafted the constitution, they supported dominion status of the self-government. But Jawaharlal Nehru wanted complete independence for the country. Now let's understand few important clauses of the Nehru report. Recommendations. Dominion status for India like the colonies like Canada, Australia, New Zealand and so on. As discussed, what is dominion status? Self-government. Particularly dominion status means we would be free to choose our own dignitaries, but it would be working under the British Parliament or the British Crown. 19 fundamental rights including the universal adult franchise, a right to vote for the men and women above 21 years of age. It is still reflected in our present constitution, although the age has been changed from 21 to 18 years. True. Equal rights for men and women as citizens to right to form unions. Correct? Right to form union is a part of Article 19 in the present day constitution. And right to form union does not give us the right to strike. Correct? Apart from this, complete disassociation of state from religion. Our country is a secular country. There would be bicameral legislature at the center. Presently, we have the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Correct? Apart from this, full responsible government with residual powers with center. Now, what is residuary powers? We have three lists. At that time, as per Government of India Act 1935, again there were three lists. Federal list, provincial list and concurrent list. In the subjects mentioned in federal list, the law was being made by the center. The subjects mentioned in the provincial list, the law was being made by the provinces. And for the subjects made in the concurrent list, mentioned in the concurrent list, the law was made by both. Okay? But in that case, if both are making law, the central law will prevail. But there are certain subjects which are not mentioned in any of the above three lists. Who is going to make the law on that? The center will make the law on that. That is the residuary power of the center. Correct? So this was one of the clause. Governor General to be the constitutional head of India. Okay? Apart from this, autonomy to the provinces. Like the provinces were being given the power to make their own law. Correct? To carry out their own administration. But in that case, the central law will prevail. Provinces would be created along the linguistic lines. Guys, I'll go back to the Home Rule League movement. Please try to connect the dots when you're studying history. Okay? Please try to analyze things. Example, Home Rule League movement was started approximately around 1914 and the Home Rule League was being established in 1916. There were two leagues. One was the League of Annie Besant and the other was the League of whom? Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji. Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji's league was formed in April 1916 and Annie Besant's league was formed in September 1916. Now, Bal Gangadhar Tilak's league had few important objectives. One objective was Swarajya. Second objective was education in vernacular languages. Okay, education in vernacular languages. And third objective was formation of the states on linguistic basis. Now, why there was formation of states on the linguistic basis? Because this will promote a regional identity. And a regional leader plays a very pivotal role in sensitizing the masses at the grassroots level. Because he is quite aware about the realities at the grassroots level. Hence, the formation of states on linguistic basis. Now, there would be dissenting opinion on this point for sure. No separate electorate for any community. Like as I have told you, as per Morley-Minto reforms, there was separate electorate given to the Muslims. As per Montego-Chelmsford reforms or Government of India Act 1919, there was separate electorate given to whom? It was extended to Sikh, Europeans, Anglo-Indians and so on. So there's no separate electorate for any community. So here there would be a violent clash with the Muslim League. True? Now what happened? Demand for joint electorate with the reservation of seats for Muslims at center and the provinces where they are in minority. Separate electorate and reservation of seats are different. What will happen in separate electorate, as I've discussed previously? The candidate would belong to the same community and the voter would belong to the same community. But under reserved seat, suppose a Muslim candidate is standing for the election, that seat would be reserved for a Muslim. But the entire constituency could vote upon that. Only Muslim candidate won't vote. Okay? No reservations for Muslim in Punjab and Bengal, and reservation of the seats, it was based on the population and it was fixed for what? 10 years. Okay? Again, full protection to the culture and religious interest of the Muslim. Now, it is reflected even in our present day constitution. Correct? Full protection to the culture, interest of whom? The minority section. True? Apart from this, proposal for creation of federal court or supreme court. And language of the country would be what we say in Devanagari script. So these were the major recommendations of whom? These were the major recommendations of the Nehru report. There was a violent clash between M.R. Zaikar, who represented Hindu Mahasabha, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was one of the most revered leaders of the Muslim League at that time. And there were Delhi proposals which said 1/3 representation of Muslims in the central legislature is compulsory. Simple words. If there are 100 seats, at least 33 seats should be reserved in the central legislature for the Muslims. Second, representation to Muslim in Punjab in proportion to their population. As I have told you, no reservation of seats for Muslims in Punjab and Bengal was one of the clauses of Nehru report. Now it says that there should be reservation of seat. Formation of 3 new provinces, Muslim majority, Sindh, Balochistan and Northwest Frontier Province. Sorry guys. Hope you understood this point. Now comes Muhammad Ali Jinnah's 14-point plan. Okay. Now there was a meeting or a session of All India Muslim League at a place called as Delhi. And now Muhammad Ali Jinnah came up with points which are referred as Jinnah's 14-point plan. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah said that if these 14 points are not taken into consideration, the Muslim League is not going to support Indian National Congress in any of its activities in the future. Now, what are these 14 points plan against the Nehru report? Let's understand. Few important ones. All the future constitution should be federal with residuary powers vested in the provinces. Correct? As I have told you, there are 3 lists. Union list, also referred as federal list. The center will make law. The provincial list, the state will make law. Concurrent list, both of them can make law. But for the subject which is not mentioned in all the 3 lists, the center should make the law. That was a part of Nehru report. Now, what is Jinnah saying? Correct? The residuary power should be given to the provinces, not to the center. all legislature and the elected body should be constituted on the principle of adequate representation to the minorities. 1/3 representation of Muslim in central legislature. As discussed, if there are 100 seats in the central legislature, 33 seats should be reserved for Muslim. Guys, here the word is Muslim, not minority. Okay? In any cabinet at the center, 1/3 to be Muslims. Again, there is a word Muslim, not minority. Example, suppose there are 100 members in the Imperial Legislative Council. At least 33 members needs to be Muslim. If there is a cabinet of 10 members, out of 10 members, at least 3 should be Muslims, not minority. Okay? This was another one of the demands of whom? Of the Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Then, this point, I have also discussed this point as a part of Lucknow Pact. If you remember, guys, no bill or resolution in any legislature to be passed if 3/4 of the minority community consider against their interest. I had explained the same point in Lucknow Pact. If you remember, guys. Now, let me explain you this point again. Suppose, totally there are 100 members in the Imperial Legislative Council. Okay? If a law needs to be made, at least 3/4 member needs to support it. If the 3/4 members are supporting it, the bill will get passed. If they are opposing it, the bill won't get passed. Correct? So if 75 members are supporting it, it will get passed. If they are not supporting it, the bill won't get passed. Now, what does this clause says? For example, I'll give you an example. Suppose a law needs to be made on triple talaq, a small example. So suppose out of 100, there are 28 Muslims. Okay? Now, 3/4 of 28, it is approximately around 21. So if 21 members, they support the law will get passed. And if the 21 members, they are against the law won't get passed. My friends, the law is not made by a particular community. The law is made by the entire parliament. Correct? Which represents the entire nation. So this was the clause which was also part of Lucknow Pact. Full religious freedom to all the community, which is also a part of our today's constitution. Separation of Sindh from Bombay Presidency. Adequate safeguards should be provided for the protection of the Muslim culture. Correct. So all these points were being portrayed in what we say Jinnah's 14-point plan. And finally, the deadline of 31st December 1929 has arrived. And we were not able to make our own constitution. Correct? And this is what Lord Birkenhead had said previously. So these are the Nehru report and Jinnah's 14-point plan. Hope you understood the session, guys. Hope the points are clear. Yes? Like today we had covered the important topics like the most important topics, particularly like the Muddiman Committee, then Butler Committee, Simon Commission, Nehru report and Jinnah's 14-point plan. Hope so the points are clear. Please go through the video again if you feel like, because here I have discussed the important points. Aspirants who are new to the platform, I'll upload the PDF of this session on the Telegram channel history_Alok Ojha. Okay. Now, UPSC IAS English Prelims to Interview Foundation Batch, the April evening batch is going to begin. Okay. Particularly speaking about the features of this batch, Prelims and the Mains Residential Program is one of the key feature of this batch. Rupees 11,000 reward to monthly top performers. Then full refund of the fees once you qualify the prelims examination. And interview guidance program is also one of the key features. The batch starts from 2nd of April and 6 p.m. is the date for this. And 6 p.m. is the timing for it. Okay. So I have discussed previously with you what is the importance of the prelims and the mains residential program. Isn't that so? Particularly when you're surrounded with the like-minded people, you develop that enthusiasm, you develop that fervor for civil services. So that this batch will 100% help you out in this. Okay. And to enroll in this batch, you can easily use my code which is flashing on your screen right now. Or you can use the code ALOK Live. Okay? So guys, just write down one simple question for the mains examination. Okay, like in the previous video, I had also discussed about the few questions and I had given you few questions for the answer writing. Write down a very simple statement. Montego-Chelmsford reform is also referred as a sunless dawn. I repeat, Montego-Chelmsford reforms is also referred as a sunless dawn. Critically analyze. Hope so the points are clear, guys. With this, I take your leave. With this, I stop my session for the day. Thank you and have a wonderful